You wake up in a dark, cold dungeon. You don't remember how you got here, and you don't know what's going on. You rub your head because it hurts. Your ears are ringing. Hey, calm down and focus. Creepy puzzles are waiting for you, and at the end of the video, you'll see how good at them you are. You see several strange symbols scratched on a brick wall. It's 4 vertical stripes, 3 stripes below, and a check mark even lower. Next, you come to a grid. A huge rusty lock is hanging on it. There's no key. Look around and try to figure out how you can get out. Have you noticed that brick that sticks out of the wall? Try pushing it. Ha! It worked! A secret door opens and you make your way outside. You go down the stairs and see a large hall. Several torches light up and you spot 4 huge mirrors. They reflect Frankenstein, a skeleton, a zombie, and a vampire. One of these creatures is a human being. Can you guess who it is? Vampires don't get reflected in the mirror, so you're looking at a human. He gives you a small bone and warns that you will need it. You get outside and realize you're in the courtyard. This is the territory of a large, sinister castle. There are no clouds in the sky, and the sun is hidden behind one of the tall towers. You can see 3 gates ahead. A werewolf is next to the first one. A second gate is guarded by a huge scorpion the size of a car. And the third gate has a scary, alive gargoyle. Something is wrong here. Find out what exactly. The sun is shining brightly, so there's no full moon. So what's a werewolf doing here? It's just a human in a costume. The werewolf opens the gate and you go through. You're back in the castle and step into a small room. There are cobwebs everywhere and a lot of garbage on the floor. You can see a jar of salt on the table and a note on the wall. It says, "A circle of salt." You decide to take the jar just in case. At this point, a slippery, viscous liquid starts dripping onto your shoulder. You look up and see a big spider descending towards you on its web. You run away and see 3 doors. You can hear screaming behind the first one. Behind the second door, you hear the sound of a chainsaw. A dog is barking behind the third one. Quickly, you've got to decide where to go. Run to the third door. Yeah, you'll meet an angry dog, but you have a bone. You throw it, and the dog immediately feels better. It nibbles on its trophy and forgets all about you. On the floor, you can see human footprints that lead to the next door. You push the handle down. It's locked. Look around the room and find the key. The dog is gnawing on the bone and the key is glinting on its collar. You pet the dog and gently remove the key from its neck. You open the door. It's dark and you can't see anything. You take a small step forward and fall into a deep hole. Fortunately, you're not hurt. On the ground, you find an old MP3 player with headphones. It still has some battery left. Great, you put it in your pocket. You can't climb up the smooth walls of the pit, but you can see that someone has thrown down 2 ropes for you to get out. One rope is white and slightly shining. The other looks quite ordinary. Choose which you should use to get out. The white rope is a spider web. The spider is still chasing you, so you choose the normal rope. You get out of the pit. The rope is tied to a marble pillar. You untie it and put it in your pocket. You slowly walk down a dark corridor and hear a growl behind you. It's a werewolf. The full moon is out. You run out of the corridor and find yourself in the street. There are 3 paths ahead of you. The first road is covered with lava. The second one is swarming with snakes. And the third road leads to a poisonous lake. Hurry up, the werewolf is coming. There's a shoe lying right on the water on the left side of the lake. This means that the lake is frozen. You're sliding on the ice and falling. The werewolf is still chasing you, but it slips too, and you have time to run to the solid ground. There's a massive tower ahead. You run inside and close the door. You find yourself in a circular hall lit by torches. Human faces appear on the walls. Their hands begin to reach out. The phantoms are slowly approaching you. They're everywhere, surrounding you. What will you do? Remember that jar of salt and the note saying, "a circle of salt"? You should spill salt around you, and the phantoms won't dare cross that line. You do, and then wait for a while, and they disappear. You climb up a spiral staircase to the top of the tower. The door slams shut behind you. There's one window and an iron torch stand mounted on the wall. In the center of the room, you notice a wide bed, surrounded by a white veil. You push the veil aside with your hand and see that 2 zombies are sleeping there. They open their eyes, get up, and slowly walk towards you. What are you gonna do now? Use the rope you found before, tie it to the torch stand, and go down through the window. Great! The zombies are too stupid to pull the rope back. You're on the ground and see a car. At this moment, the werewolf breaks out of the castle. You get into the vehicle and lock the door. The werewolf hits the window with its paws. You can't find the key. It's probably in the glove compartment, but it has a 3-digit combination lock. Recall the beginning of your adventure and try to guess the code. Hurry up before the werewolf breaks the glass. In the dungeon where you woke up, there were several signs on the wall. 4 vertical stripes, 3 stripes below them, and a check mark even lower. The check mark is the Roman numeral 5. Then the code is 435. You take out the key, start the engine, and drive away. You leave the castle but realize the car's brakes don't work. There are 3 roads ahead. A brick wall is at the end of the first one. The second road leads to a burning forest. And the third road ends on a high hill with a cliff. What path will you choose? There's almost no time. You're driving too fast. Release the gas pedal and drive up the hill. The speed will soon drop. At one point, you'll be able to get out of the vehicle. You jump out of the car and it falls off the cliff. You go around the hill and get into a swamp. You make your way through the marsh and see 3 women in front of you. Which one is a mermaid? The woman in the middle has something strange on her neck. Those are gills. The second girl has webbed fingers. The girl on the left seems normal. She's a human. You pass through the swamps and find yourself on the seashore. An old motorboat is lying on the sand. You push it to the water, start the engine, and climb inside. You go far away from the island with the castle. In the distance, you see some rocks and shipwrecks. You slow down and hear beautiful singing. It's coming from several women staying on top of the rocks. They're sirens. Using their singing, they lure sailors whose ships crash against the rocks. You move straight toward them and can't resist it. The rocks are getting closer and closer. Do something, quickly! You still have your MP3 player you found in the pit. You put on the headphones, turn on the music, and go away. The engine stalls. Far ahead, you can see an outline of another island. You grab an oar and start rowing. A few hours pass, you're hungry and thirsty. There are fish swimming in the water, and you find a can of worms in the boat. But how can you catch them without a fishing rod? Use one of your shoelaces. Tie the bait to it and lower it into the water. It works! You catch a few fish, but then you notice a shark's fin. It circles you and pushes the boat. The island is really close, but you need to get away from the dangerous creature. How are you going to solve this problem? Throw the fish you've caught as far as possible. This will distract the shark and give you some time to get to the shore. Whew, done. But unfortunately, you've given your lunch away to the sea hunter. Exhausted, you get to the shore. Here, you meet a man. It says it was him who left you the MP3 player and the rope. He also wrote the code on the wall of the dungeon. Without a word, you kick him in the shins and he hobbles off. No, you don't, but I sure would. Anyway, you're glad that everything is over and just lie down on the sand. But the man tells you it's not the time to relax. Other tough tests are waiting for you. You hear bizarre sounds coming from the jungle. But that's another story, and this one is coming to an end. Time to find out your score. 0 to 4 points, don't get upset. You can do better, but it's a bad idea for you to go to magic castles. 5 to 8 points, not bad. You've proved that you're brave, but you were a little lacking in resourcefulness. You will solve other riddles better. 9 to 12 points, almost perfect. You've passed the test and proved that you can get out of any dangerous situation alive. 13 to 15 points. It's not you who should run away from the monsters. They should be wary of you. Any mystical castle can become your home.
A shrill ringing of your phone jolts you awake. Your friend, the best detective in the city, is on the line. I don't have time to explain. I'm leaving the city in 20 minutes. You'll have to replace me for the next week or two. Don't try to contact me. As he hangs up, you're left sitting on your bed, the phone in your hand, staring into the darkness of your room. You have to deal with your first case already in the morning. An anxious man rushes into your friend's office. I work as a cashier in a clothing store. Last night, I was the one to lock it up. As I was counting the money, the room suddenly went dark. There was some problem with the light bulb. I climbed the table and grabbed it, but by doing it, I burned my hand, jerked it back, fell to the floor, and lost consciousness. When I came to my senses, the money was gone. You examine the room attentively and realize the man is lying. What makes you think so? The light bulb the cashier told you about is an LED one. Such light bulbs don't get hot. Your first real case makes you hungry. You go to the nearest restaurant to get something to eat. But as soon as you enter, you hear loud, angry voices. A waitress and a visitor are arguing. You also ordered chicken wings, and you have to pay for this dish. It's the waitress. The visitor looks tired and sleepy. But I didn't. I haven't been here longer than an hour. Yes, I did doze off, but it doesn't mean I don't remember my order. You can't help but step in. You know very well that this man couldn't have ordered chicken wings, you say. How did you figure it out? You spotted a note on the wall. It says, "The kitchen works till 1 p.m. today." It's now 3 p.m. The man claims he's been there for an hour, which means he came well after the kitchen was closed. After the accident, you decide to have a meal at another cafe. But as you come closer, you see a crying lady. "I was going to cross the road when some woman grabbed my purse and disappeared. I noticed her enter this cafe. Can you help me get my things back?" You enter the cafe. "Ah, that's my purse, right between those two women. But I can't recognize the one who took it. I didn't have time to look at her attentively." You don't need much time to figure out which woman is guilty. It's the one on the left. The woman on the right has her left arm in a cast. If she had taken the purse, she'd have put it on the right side of herself. After such an eventful day, you're exhausted. You fall asleep as soon as your head touches the pillow. But you get woken up just a few hours later. Another day, another case.
"Oh, you're finally here."
A man tied to a chair looks happy.
"Someone broke into my house this night, tied me, and stole all our valuables. Our mailman came early in the morning to deliver newspapers. He must have heard me shouting for help and called the police. Luckily, all our stuff was insured. But I hope to deal with this problem before my wife finds out about this."
You arrest the man for attempting insurance fraud. Why? You paid attention that the newspapers were on the table in the hall. not lying on the floor near the mail slot. Someone must have put them there. It could only be the house owner or his wife, who was an accomplice. After the police arrive, you leave the man's house and immediately receive a new call. Mrs. Smith claims that her neighbor, Mrs. Miller, has stolen her laundry. The woman says she hung the laundry in her backyard at 10 a.m. And when she went out of the house 2 hours later, she saw Mrs. Miller putting it in her bag.
I didn't do this. It's a lie.
The other woman looks angry. You look around and ask Mrs. Smith to go to the police station with you for trying to slander her neighbor. How did you figure out that Mrs. Smith was lying? It's freezing outside, and there's snow on the roofs. In 2 hours, damp laundry would be so frozen, it'd be impossible to fold it and put it in a bag. Your phone rings again. It's a woman who works at a museum.
You must help me,
She cries. When you arrive at the museum, she tells you her story.
Yesterday, I stayed late at work. I needed to prepare some documents. I was sitting at this table. The overhead lights were off, and the only source of light was my desk lamp. I was listening to music when suddenly I saw a shadow to the right of the table. I realized it was a person jumping out of the open window. I immediately switched on the overhead lights and discovered that an ancient vase I kept in my office was gone. This vase costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You didn't believe this story. Why? If the only source of light had been a desk lamp standing in front of the woman, she wouldn't have noticed a shadow to the right of the table. It turns out that before leaving, your detective friend gave your contacts to all his acquaintances. And now, one of them needs your help. You arrive at his jewelry store. A client came there several hours ago, planning to buy an expensive diamond ring for his wife. But someone stole his wallet right in the store. The manager, he was the one to call you, asked all the visitors who were inside at that time to stay until your arrival. You look at all these people attentively. Soon you know who took the wallet. It's the man in the middle. He has a bandage on his right arm, but it's wrapped over the sleeve of his jacket, not hidden under it, like a real bandage would be. You knock on a sturdy brown door, while a woman with a bandage on her head stands next to you. A man opens the door. "Excuse me," you say. "A pot plant fell out of your window an hour ago and hit this woman on her head. I had to take her to the hospital. She's okay now, but you need to compensate this woman for the damage. May we come in?" The man turns pale, but lets you in.
It can't be true. Our windows were closed because we've just returned home. I literally entered my apartment 2 minutes before you came.
You realize this man is lying and call the police. How did you figure it out? You spotted a pan with boiling water in the kitchen. If the man had indeed come home just a few minutes ago, the water wouldn't have had enough time to start boiling. Now, it's your friend who needs help. She owns a grocery store. A gust of wind blew a $100 bill out of her hands, and the money seems to have vanished into thin air. Your friend thinks it was one of the customers who took the bill, but no one wants to admit stealing the money. You ask all visitors to go to your friend's office when a woman speaks up. "It's incredible to be accused of theft. Here, you can check my bags right now." "Please, just come with me to the office. We'll figure it out there," you say. After the woman refuses to follow you, you call the police. Why? The woman is standing on the $100 bill. If she follows you, everyone will see the money. The next morning, rainy and gloomy, you get your next case. To investigate it, you need to visit the office of a large international company. Rebecca, the girl who called you, works there. She says, "I've just come back from brunch and discovered that someone had knocked our HR manager out just an hour ago." You question the people who were in the office at that time. Laura is an applicant. She says she was a bit angry with the HR manager. He made her wait well past her appointment time. "And still," the girl says, "I would never hit another person. I'm also too weak to do it." Gary, who works in the marketing department, claims he hasn't seen the HR manager since he arrived at work. He was in a meeting from the very morning till lunchtime. Jacob from Research and Development tells you he rode his bike to a coffee shop to get his cappuccino. He's just come back. You immediately realize who hit the HR manager. It was Jacob. Both his bike and his clothes are dry and clean. How is that possible if it's raining outside? You leave Rebecca's office and hear your phone beeping. You see a text with an address you don't know. You drive there. A man meets you at the door of a large building. He's shaking. When you enter a large dark hall, you see 2 containers filled with transparent liquid. 2 women are floating inside. They look identical.
One of them is my wife, but I can't figure out which one, and I'm allowed to open only one container.
You walk around the women and examine them. Then you point at one of them. That's your wife. How did you figure it out? The man's name is Mark. It's written on his biker jacket. His wife is the woman with the letter M tattooed on her arm. Your phone beeps again. You look at it and see a message. It's from your detective friend. There's just one word on the screen. Help! But that's already another story.
Jordan was very late for a job interview. When he drove up to the office building, he found out there was no free parking spaces. He decided to leave his car a bit further from the entrance. Oh no, even though there were several other vehicles in that place, parking was prohibited there. Luckily, Jordan came up with an idea and didn't get fined. What did he do? He took a parking ticket from another car and put it on his windshield. It looked as if he'd already been fined. Julia took part in a cooking competition. She decided to prepare her favorite muffins. She did her best and the muffins looked great. But when the jury members tried them, they started to pull faces and splutter. It turned out someone had replaced the sugar Julia was going to use with salt. The girl understood she had lost her chance to become the winner, but at least she could figure out who had done it to her. She had 3 other competitors. Wayne told her he hadn't even been there. He forgot to buy several ingredients and did some last-minute shopping. Amber said that she had been preparing the icing for her cake, and Diana told Julia that she'd been very busy with her recipe. It was complicated, and she had to follow it precisely. Very soon, Julia knew who had spoiled her muffins. And have you figured it out? It was Amber. She said she'd been preparing the icing, but her cake was only sprinkled with some powdered sugar. That day, famous chef Christina was going to have some very important guests in her restaurant. She was anxious because her future depended on how they would appreciate her food. Everything had to be perfect. There was only 1 hour left before the guests were supposed to arrive, and that's when Christina discovered someone had left ugly red handprints on her sparkling white jacket. She examined the stains. It was ketchup. Christina knew that some of the cooks didn't like her. She decided to find out who was behind the accident. Look at the cooks and try to help the chef figure out who's guilty. There's a pair of gloves stained with something red in the trash can. The only person who isn't wearing any gloves is the cook on the left. He was the one to spoil Christina's uniform. Nancy was angry with her boyfriend Paul and sent him an email. In it, she told the guy she was going to break up with him. But just an hour after sending the message, the girl found out Paul had done nothing wrong. Now, she needed to delete the email from his computer. The girl knew Paul was at work, so she sneaked into his house. But the computer was protected by a password. Nancy thought the word she needed could be her name. Paul loved her very much after all, but the girl was wrong. And then an idea came to her mind. She typed in a word and this time it was correct. Look at what Nancy saw on the screen and try to figure out the password. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. BRYMPNACB. The password was 67683. These numbers correspond with the letters of Nancy's name. Linda was in a cafe with her boyfriend, and their date wasn't going very well. At some moment, they both got angry and started to argue. Suddenly, their waiter came up to the table and handed something to Linda. It was a note with a strangely written word: little t, big R, little O, big U, little b, little L, little e, question mark. Linda was confused. What could it mean? Can you figure it out? The waiter got worried and asked Linda, "Are you in trouble?" Dennis called the police and told them a large sum of money had disappeared from his dorm room. He thought it was one of his neighbors who had done this. The police came and questioned the guy's neighbor. Deborah, a designer, told the officers, "I had to finish an important project. That's why I pulled an all-nighter. When I sent the final version to the client in the morning, I went to bed and only woke up when you came." Aaron, a waiter, said, "I've had a very long shift today because one of my colleagues got ill. I haven't seen Dennis since yesterday." And Nathan, a vet, said, "I've just come back home. One of my patients called and told me he felt unwell. I had to hurry to the hospital where he was and stay with him." The police officers immediately understood who was lying. And you? It was Nathan who had taken the money. He lied about a patient calling him. He's a vet. Look at these three young ladies. Can you figure out who the cat belongs to? Its owner is the blonde girl. The cat has torn her t-shirt. What does this rebus puzzle mean? MIL1LION. That's 1 in a million. Susan worked as a nurse in a hospital. One day, she came to make injections to 3 patients. After this injection, it was prohibited to get up, and Susan specifically warned the patients to stay in bed. But when the woman came back, she realized one of them had gotten up while she had been away. Who was it, and how did she understand it? It's the guy on the left. His phone is now plugged in, but the outlet is quite far from his bed. John was hungry. He took something, threw away the outside, and cooked the inside. Then he ate the outside and threw away the inside. What snack did he have? An ear of corn. Jason smuggled antiques into the country. This time, it was a beautiful ancient vase. In no time, he found a person who was ready to buy it. As agreed, Jason came to the park. He had a bag with the vase inside. The guy left it on the bench and hid behind the trees. In less than a minute, a bulky man came up to the bench, grabbed the bag, and went away. When Jason approached the bench again, he saw a note. In it, there was a code. Roads and roads. What is the hidden word? Jason needed just a few seconds to realize the word in the note was crossroads. But which crossroad did his client mean? The guy looked around and saw a modern hotel. Its name was Crossroads. Jason headed for the hotel. He told his name to the receptionist and received yet another note. There was just 3 letters, F, B, D. After some thinking, the guy understood what the room number was. Do you know it too? It's room 624. F is the 6th letter of the alphabet, B is the 2nd, and D is the 4th. Jason got to the 6th floor and found the room he needed. The door was indeed open. On the table, there was one more note, hopefully the last one. It had 3 images, a lamp, a bottle of water, and a key. Next to the lamp, there was a downward pointing arrow. Near the bottle, there was an arrow pointing to the left. and to the key there was an upward pointing arrow. Where is the money? It's under the cushion on the sofa. This cushion is on the right side of the bottle, lower than the lamp and higher than the key, which is lying on the floor. Emily came to the police station to report her diamond ring stolen. Only me, my husband, and his best friend Larry knew where I kept the ring. My husband has been away on business for 3 weeks. When he left, the ring was still in my jewelry box. It means Larry must have taken it. Detective Richardson visited the man. I know nothing about the ring, and I would never do something like this to my friend. That was when the detective noticed an inconspicuous jewelry box on the shelf over the table. May I have a look? Inside, he saw a diamond ring. This ring was left for me by my great-grandfather. He bought it in Europe decades ago. I even have some papers proving my words. When Detective Richardson looked at the documents, he realized Larry was lying. How did he figure it out? Look at the date. It's February 30th. The documents are fake. How about this rebus puzzle? Let's see how fast you'll crack it. Working time. It means working overtime. Kayla was staying in a hotel in Paris when someone broke into her room and took all her expensive stuff. The police had 3 suspects. Alan said, "I was trying to pour myself some coffee downstairs, but with my arm in a sling, it was so difficult." Mary told the police, "I was at the reception trying to solve some issues with my shower." And Bruce said, "I was sleeping. It was so loud at night I couldn't rest at all." Who broke into Kayla's room? It was Alan. Look at his cast. He's wearing it over his sweater, so it must be fake.
You ready? Let's go. Nash works with 3 women, Madison, Samantha, and Gabriella. He's been in love with one of them for months. Take a look at the picture of them having a conversation. Can you tell which of the women Nash is in love with? Psychologists say we tend to point our feet toward the person we like the most in the group. Nash's feet are pointing at Madison, so his secret crush must be her. A group of friends, Abby, Beck, Tom, Flynn, and Ethan, were spending an evening together eating and talking. Abby knew her best friend Beck had a secret crush on someone, but her friend never told her who the crush was. At some point, Beck cracked a joke and everyone started laughing. Abby paid closer attention to something and immediately figured out who Beck's crush was. Can you guess it too? When people laugh, they tend to look at those who they like the most. So let's see who Beck is looking at. Ooh, seems like it's Tom. Emily's won the lottery and now she can choose her prize. There are 3 options: a brand new Ferrari, a Gucci handbag, and Jimmy Choo shoes. Take a closer look at them and tell which prize she should choose. Emily should choose the handbag. The logos of Ferrari and Jimmy Choo are wrong, so the car and the shoes must be fake. Esme got lost in the forest again. This time, it didn't take her long to find at least the old witch's house. She petted the cat and asked if the witch could help her get out of the forest. Again. The witch agreed, but on one condition. Esme had to solve her riddle. If she succeeded, the witch would send her home, and if she failed, Esme would stay with the witch and the cat forever. Esme had to agree. The witch gave her 3 sticks and asked her to turn them into 6 without breaking any. Esme managed to do the task. How? Three sticks are exactly enough to make the Roman 6 out of them, like this. Take a look at these 2 women going to the opera. Can you tell which one of them is a model of a popular brand? Both women have Louis Vuitton bags, but take a closer look at the logos. The logo on the right is wrong, so the bag must be fake. It means that the woman on the left is the face of the brand. The Millers and the Johnsons are going on a vacation. Can you tell which family has a daughter? Take a closer look at their suitcases. The Millers have 2 suitcases, but the Johnsons have 3. The extra one must be their daughter's, who's probably just left for a while. Let's move to Norway. After the Christmas break, 2 twin sisters, Alicia and Ada, came to visit their mother. However, one of the sisters has a boyfriend from Thailand who she visited right before her mother. Can you tell which one? Norway is a cold country in the north. Also, it's winter, but unlike her twin sister, Ada is tanned. It's probably because she just spent her vacation in some warm country, like Thailand, at her boyfriend's place. So it must be her. A chemist has discovered a new element. 3 days later, he suddenly disappeared. Ben, his intern, is supposed to finish the scientist's work. However, all the data is on the chemist's computer, and Ben doesn't know the passcode. He only knows that the passcode is his daughter's name, which the scientist has never mentioned. Luckily, there's a hint. Can you guess the daughter's name? Her father is a chemist, so the key must be something related to chemistry. How about the periodic table? The 9th element is fluorine, which is F. The 53rd element is iodine, and that's I. Then there's 8, which is oxygen, or O. And the 11th element is sodium, which is Na. So the daughter's name is Fiona, and that's the password. Mr. and Mrs. Murphy are having a walk in a park with 3 girls, Adeline, Kaylee, and Sienna. 2 of them are their nieces, and the other one is their daughter. Can you tell which girl is the daughter? Their daughter is Adeline. Look, both Mr. and Mrs. Murphy have blue eyes. It means that their daughter can only have blue eyes too. Adeline is the only girl with blue eyes. 3 girls, May, Reagan, and Tessa, came to a private party and said that they're world-famous top models. However, 2 of them lied. Can you guess which one of them told the truth and is really a famous top model? She must be wearing a real designer purse and not a copy. Look, the logos of Reagan and Tessa's Dolce & Gabbana purses are wrong, so these girls must be lying. It seems like the real model is May. Gabriel noticed a beautiful woman in a park and came up to meet her. They talked for hours and, among other things, he learned that she's a music teacher, has 3 siblings and a niece. Gabriel asked her out on a date, but the woman said she'd only agree if he guessed the name of her niece. Gabriel says it's impossible and asked for a hint. The woman said just 2 words, 3, 6. Can you help Gabriel guess the name? Remember, she's a music teacher, so it must be somehow connected to music. Let's recall the musical notes: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. The 3rd one is mi, and the 6th one is la. If we put them together, we get Mila. That must be the woman's niece's name. Voila! It's date night. At the end of a school break, Elle returned to her class to find a short love note on her desk. She looked around to see who it could be from, but she couldn't tell. Still, she had 3 suspects: the students who'd always been especially nice to her. She asked them directly if they wrote her a note. Martin said he had been busy finishing his homework. Owen said he had been scrolling through his social media feed and hadn't written any notes. Leanna denied writing a note too and said that she'd been in the bathroom. However, Elle still guessed who wrote the note. Can you? Look, Leanna's hands are covered in ink. If she really was in the bathroom, her hands would be clean. So she must be lying, and she must be the one who wrote that note. Hey, don't be shy. After a summer break, all students returned to school. 4 friends started to talk about what they had been doing all summer. It turned out that all of them had been traveling. Addison said she and her family had taken a trip to Moldova to visit her grandma. Ash said he and his girlfriend had spent the whole 2 months in Venezuela. Joshua said he'd visited Narnia, and Kira had been to several Asian countries. However, one of the friends actually stayed at home the whole time. Can you tell who? It's Joshua. Narnia is a fictional country. He probably had a movie marathon that summer. Dan found himself in a dark dungeon and couldn't remember what happened. But he didn't mind because right in front of him there were 3 chests. One of them was full of gold coins, another was full of silver coins, and the third one was full of diamonds. He could take any one of the chests with him. However, outside there was a vampire waiting for him. What should Dan do? Dan should take the chest with the silver coins. Vampires are afraid of silver, so he'd be able to walk past the vampire. Ka-ching! Ms. Harrelson reported that someone had broken into her house and stolen her grandma's golden watch. Detective Callum was up for the case and interrogated the woman. Ms. Harrelson said she had been vacuum cleaning upstairs when she heard some scratching on the door, followed by footsteps. She was afraid, so she didn't go downstairs until the burglar was gone. When it was over, she found that her watch was stolen. Detective Callum refused to start the case and said that the woman was lying. Why? Ms. Harrelson said that she had been vacuum cleaning when she heard the noise. It just wouldn't be possible because the vacuum cleaner is very noisy and she couldn't possibly have heard anything. Hope and Luke are a couple living in New York. Luke recently got a new job and left for a work trip to India. In the afternoon, Hope called her boyfriend and asked what he was doing. Luke said he was having a lunch and was going for a business meeting soon. When Luke returned home a week later, Hope broke up with him. Why? When it's afternoon in New York, it's night in India. However, Luke said he had been having a lunch and going for a meeting after. People don't do this at night. He lied. He probably hadn't even been in India. Austin got locked in the room that was going to explode in 1 minute. Been there, done that. There was a way out, but the door was locked and required a passcode. Take a look at the hint and guess what the passcode is. Each number is the number of lines in the respective letter. There are 4 lines needed for an E and M, 2 for V, 2 for T, and 3 for Z. Following the same logic, the passcode is 1332. Good work!
A wealthy man, Mr. Johnson, had a precious vase that he valued more than all other belongings. One day, the vase disappeared. The man was miserable. An hour after he discovered it was missing, he got a message. If you don't come here in 10 minutes with $100,000, your vase will be broken. There was a photo attached to the message. Mr. Johnson realized it was some hotel. In that area, there were 3 of them: the Hero of California, Hummingbird, and Youth Hostel. Where should the man go? Mr. Johnson should hurry to Hummingbird. It's the only hotel that has the 7th floor. Amanda was in the middle of a burning room. The only window was small and too high for the woman to reach. There was also nothing to climb or stand on. There was no rope, neither was there a door. And still, in a matter of seconds, Amanda was outside. How is it possible? There was no door in the room. The woman just ran out through the doorway. A woman is sitting in her cabin in Ohio, but 4 hours later, she gets out of her cabin in Arizona. How did she do it? The woman is a pilot, and the cabin is actually the cockpit of the plane she flies. One night, Kevin broke into a rich house. He knew its owner had just bought a unique diamond. The thief managed to get through one of the trickiest security systems he'd ever seen. And here it was, the diamond. After grabbing the gem, Kevin got out of the house, but when he was already outside the gate, 2 security guards caught him. The guy tried to persuade the men he was only a passerby, but they didn't believe him. They searched Kevin, but found nothing. The guards were puzzled and decided the thief had swallowed the diamond. But X-ray also didn't show anything strange. The security guards had to let Kevin go. The guy got home, and in a few minutes, he had the diamond in his hands. How did he smuggle it? When Kevin broke into the house, he wasn't alone. His parrot was with him. After getting the precious stone, the guy attached it to the parrot's foot, and the bird brought the diamond back home. Paul was a young but very talented chemist. He was going to attend a very important conference where he had to present his latest work. But right before the event, Paul's envious colleague locked the guy in his lab. There was no way he could get out of there on his own. In the middle of the room, there was a test tube with some bright purple liquid inside. There was also a note. This mixture will blow up in 1 minute. You've got only one chance to neutralize it with one of these ingredients. If you add the correct one, the reaction will stop. Here's the clue you'll need to figure out the needed ingredient. H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O. And don't hope your chemical knowledge will help here. Luckily, Paul was very smart and managed to find the right ingredient before the time ran out. Which one was it? It's a row of letters from H to O. It means the needed ingredient is H2O, which is water. 2 identical vans were crossing the bridge when it collapsed. The car fell into the water and started to sink. Luckily, the drivers were unharmed. But they had to find the way to the surface really fast because the vans started to fill with water. One of the men began to push the driver's door, and the other was trying to open the side door. Who has the higher chances of survival? The first driver won't be able to open the door because of the water pressure. But the side door in the second car is a sliding one. With some effort, the second driver will be able to open it and escape. One person can dig a hole within 1 day. Then, how long will it take 2 people to dig half a hole? There's no such thing as half a hole. Look at these pictures and try to figure out which mirror is magical. It's the one on the right. It shows the man wearing a mustache, but in real life, his face is clean shaven. Betty was having lunch in her favorite cafe when several police officers came in. They were looking for a criminal who had escaped from the police station the day before. Betty started to look around, examining the visitors. She spotted the criminal even faster than the officers did. Who was it? Look at the barman. He's wearing handcuffs. Daniel wanted to go to the seaside with his friends in the summer, but his father reminded the guy he'd promised to help in his parents' store. When the man saw how upset his son was, he offered him a deal. Daniel had to solve several riddles, and then he'd be free to go and have fun with his friends. So, our customers often ask us to sell them something that's full of holes but can still hold water. What should we offer them? After a while, Daniel found the right answer. What's this mysterious thing? It's a sponge. Daniel's father continued,
I'm thinking of introducing a new method of pricing the things we sell. Socks will cost $20. A tie will be $12. You'll have to pay $28 for a sweater. And a coat will cost $16. Based on this pricing method, how much will be a t-shirt? Do you know the answer? Daniel was confused at first, but then he realized the correct answer was $24. His father was going to charge $4 for each letter needed to spell the item of clothing. "You're doing really well," Daniel's father told the guy. "That's why I'll give you just one more riddle. If you crack it, you can have some rest in the summer. 81 times 9 equals 801. This equation isn't correct. What can you do to make it true?" This riddle took Daniel quite a while. And how fast can you solve it? All Daniel had to do was turn the equation upside down. Luckily, the guy managed to figure it out. He got 108 equals 6 times 18. Jason was a courier who regularly delivered food and other stuff to Mrs. Brown. The elderly lady really liked him a lot. She trusted him enough to let the guy use her spare key. The lady kept it under her doormat. When Mrs. Brown was away, Jason would take this key and leave everything he brought inside. One day, the guy came to the woman's house and found out the key wasn't in its usual place. He rang the bell, and a man he'd never seen before opened the door. "I'm an electrician," he said. "I was fixing some lighting problems in the living room, and the elderly lady is resting now." Jason immediately called the police. Why? The criminal entered the house with the help of the spare key. Paul came back from his lunch break and saw that someone had spilled coffee all over his documents. He cried out, and this attracted his boss's attention. The man decided to figure out who had spoiled Paul's work. He asked his subordinates what they had been doing during their lunch break. Nancy and Liza said they had been together. They went to a cafe to get some coffee. Brian explained that he'd felt unwell. That's why he decided to take a walk in the park. And Sandra said that she'd been talking to her boyfriend on the phone. The boss immediately realized who was lying. Can you figure it out? It was Sandra. There's a sign on the wall that prohibits the employees to use their phones in the office. It means the girl couldn't be speaking with her boyfriend. A wealthy businessman disappeared right from his home one afternoon. His wife called the police. The detective arrived and questioned everyone who was in the house at that time. The cook said that she'd been preparing dinner and hadn't left the kitchen. The maid claims she had been cleaning the dining room after the businessman and his wife had had lunch. And the wife said that after lunch, she'd been sunbathing and swimming in the pool. The detective immediately realized who was behind the man's disappearance. Do you know the answer? It was the wife. Look outside. It's late fall and there's no water in the swimming pool. Jeffrey was on a plane, ready to have his first parachute jump, when he started to panic. Without putting on his parachute, the guy jumped out of the plane, and still, he remained absolutely unharmed. How is it possible? The plane was still on the ground. There's a large apple tree growing on a cliff. If a powerful wind is blowing towards the land, where will the apples fall? In any case, they will fall down.